Alright guys, so today I wanted to discuss when the Titanic lights officially went out and kind of the whole idea of electricity during the sinking. How long did the lights stay on? At what point were they shut off? Did they, when water hit them, did they go out immediately? Kind of all those different things. So the first thing, it's widely accepted that the Titanic lights went out anywhere between 2:10 a.m. and 2:20 a.m. In the 1997 movie, it depicts the lights going out at 2:15 a.m. right before the famous Titanic ship groan, and then the crack in half, of course. Now, recently, we have had other simulations that seem to think the lights went out 4 minutes later at 2:19 a.m. Before I even get into the explanation of the lights going out, how that worked, when you look at the 1997 movie, because that's what normally all of us, our minds tend to go to, in real life, the ship was a lot dimmer. And one of the biggest reasons why, right before the ship's electricity goes out, you can see every single porthole, or at least virtually every single porthole, has light in it. That is not true. That is not what happened in real life. Number one, the lights were a lot dimmer at that point in the sinking because they were losing power and becoming dimmer as the sinking unfolded. But also, the Titanic was underbooked for its first maiden voyage. So there were a lot of staterooms that had nobody occupying them, and also there were going to be people that just turned off their lights. You're not just going to leave your lights on. It's almost like in the movie, it made it seem like they flipped an emergency switch to turn the entire ship on and every light bulb on. I understand they were just doing that as an effect because it looked really cool, and that's fine, but it happened a lot differently. It was not that light, obviously. And when it comes to the electricity, it was located in the Electric Machinery Center, which was on the top tank, and it was aft of the turbine room. It was basically way under the fourth funnel. So one of the big reasons the power was able to stay on, the room never really got flooded. It was completely destroyed during the wreck. We cannot explore it because it's located towards the stern, but the room really never received water until the way end, and the actual ship breakup is what caused it. And there's kind of some differing opinions on when that exactly happened. In the Cameron movie, we see it kind of flicker a few times, then go out, and then snap right after the groan, as opposed to some recent simulations like the Titanic Honor and Glory one, where the ship is cracking, and as it's cracking, the lights are flickering, and then they go out. And then even after that, even after the main lights go out, there are emergency red lights in that simulation that turn on. Titanic's electrical plant was capable of producing more power than an average city power station of the time. When the ship broke up, the main steam line ruptured, so from that point, the lights had until the dynamos ran out. And the reason why they went out, this is kind of the thought process, the exact timing of them going out as the ship is breaking, because again, the water did not cause this. The ship breaking caused the lights to go out. It might have had to do with an important circuit becoming severed as the stresses increased, or some type of surge. There is the one seed of the worker down below, kind of the only time we see this, getting electrocuted. That made me think, well, maybe it was just a circuit burst or something like that, and it didn't have to do with the ship breaking up. But at that point, the ship was under so much stress, it was virtually already, moaning and about to crack. So I would imagine it had something to do with it. And when it comes to how the water interacted with the electricity, there are very interesting photos and survivor accounts of them seeing portholes lit up that were underwater. That's because the ship was getting dragged down. It didn't have time to flood those compartments, so those compartments would be completely empty, but they were underwater. It's like the phenomenon where in the movie, when Jack is in the Master at Arms office, you see the water line way above him, but the room is not flooded yet. There's a lag to it, and survivors said, that actually happened. And when it comes to the lights going out, I would imagine whenever they contacted the water, they would immediately turn off. I've seen a few different illustrations where this was on Instagram. Maybe I'll try and find it. The bow was pulled so far under and like all the lights are still on while all those rooms are flooded. Did they get waterproof electricity there in 1912? Is that what they got? Several survivors said Titanic had a reddish glow in the final moments, and that is interesting to see those red emergency lights that James Cameron didn't throw in there. I think that could just be a situation where they didn't know, they had emergency lights on at the time. It's also a thing, I mean, let's be real, it's a movie. If you have those red lights, that's going to kind of ruin the shot of the ship in the pitch black. Let's be honest. But there is the thought that those red lights did go on even after the power was cut and all of the rooms were pitch black. Another thing you got to remember, and this is kind of morbid, a lot of these rooms filled with water in complete darkness. A lot of them were empty and it was just complete dark. I mean, imagine towards the bow of the ship, the squash court, one of the biggest rooms, probably the biggest room on the interior, just filling with like a pond of ocean water, and it's pitch black. The sinking was a lot more morbid and dark than the movie depicts because of the light situation. And I understand why they would want to make it really bright. It's better for the movie, but in terms of reality, it was a lot more dark, and it was so dark, there were a ton of questions on even if the ship broke up because the passengers couldn't tell. It was kind of, some of them said it did, but the general consensus was the ship did not break up. That's why there's a lot of illustrations prior to 1985. Many of them show the ship together in one piece on the ocean floor because that's how hard it was to see. There were conflicting reports on whether it even broke up because at that point the lights were completely off. And again, this likely happened anywhere from 2:15 a.m. to 2:19 a.m. with the more recent stuff saying 2:19 a.m. was the split. And then during the split, the lights were already dim at this point, but during the split is when they officially turned off. Also, you could take a look at some different electrical outlets on the Titanic. This is a first-class stateroom. This was an electric plug socket that were used for movable electric lights located in many different areas of the ship, mainly used for lamps and such. Lighting was a major part of architecture back then. If you look at any of the rooms on Titanic, especially at night, it had elegant, beautiful lighting. I would imagine, well, I will say, the one big thing that was just realized, and it is sad, they did not have artificial lighting in the Grand Staircase Dome. It would have been great if they did, like shown in the movie, to where it could be at midnight and it looks like it's bright out because supposedly there was supposed to be light that illuminates from the dome. What they realized was it was really hard to get lights in the dome to fully light up the entire thing, so they just kind of had a chandelier that lit it up. It looks a lot worse than what we originally thought, but they did have artificial lighting in the first class reception room and in the first class main dining area to where you could be eating dinner at 8 or 9 and it would look like natural light was outside because they would have artificial lights located right behind the window in the first class dining area and the first class reception area. That's something that I like. It's a nice little detail, really good lighting. There's also some really good simulations on how the lights kind of turned off as the rooms flooded and how long it took for all the outlets to short circuit and go out. There's also a few of those on YouTube, but I just wanted to talk about the electricity on Titanic and when it exactly went out. Right before or right during the breakup is when it officially did go. The main reason it was able to stay on so long was because the room was located towards the back of the ship. It never did flood. So guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.